Have you ever wondered if you're really alone? Or just disconnected from everything but still overwhelmed by it all? When was the last time you sat with your thoughts, without distractions, without the noise of the world pulling at your mind? In a society constantly demanding our attention, where silence feels uncomfortable and solitude is mistaken for loneliness, we've lost touch with one of our greatest sources of power, being alone with intention. Today, I want to challenge that narrative. I want to show you how solitude is not weakness, it's strength. It's not escape, it's strategy. And it's not loneliness, it's leadership of the self. If you're ready to reclaim your focus, your emotions, and your power, then subscribe now, because this journey into the Stoic path of solitude may just transform how you live in a world that never stops shouting. 1. Solitude, the strength to return to yourself. Solitude isn't about removing yourself from the world, it's about returning to yourself. In the quiet, you hear your true values whisper back to you. We live in an age where noise is everywhere. A ping on your phone, the endless scroll of social media, the pressure to always be seen, heard, and engaged. But amidst that noise, your inner voice, the compass that points to your truest self, gets drowned out. True solitude is not loneliness, it is presence. Presence with yourself, stripped of pretense, untouched by the performance of public life. In solitude, you can finally see who you are when you're not trying to impress, achieve, or conform. You become reacquainted with your essential nature. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Solitude, when chosen with purpose, becomes the forge of clarity. This is not about isolation from the world, but immersion in the self. It is a retreat not from people, but from illusion. When you sit alone with your thoughts, when you allow the silence to stretch out longer than what is comfortable, something profound happens. You begin to hear the truth again. All the distractions fall away, and in their absence, you rediscover your values, your convictions, your long-forgotten questions. Solitude is a crucible, and in it, the clutter is burned away, leaving only what is solid, what is real. When you step away from the constant input of others' opinions and expectations, you begin to ask the only questions that matter. What do I stand for? What truly matters to me? What am I avoiding by staying busy? These are not casual questions. They are soul-level interrogations. But they can only be asked and answered in silence. Most people never stop long enough to listen to the answers. They rush from meeting to meeting, scroll from post to post, filling every moment with noise because deep down, they fear what they might find in the quiet. But the Stoic does not fear stillness. The Stoic embraces it, because it is in that stillness that we reconnect with purpose, that we reawaken our discipline, that we return to the roots of our power. Solitude, then, is not retreat, it is reconnection. A deliberate return to the self before re-engaging with the world, clearer and more grounded than before. 2. The Stoic discipline of intentional retreat. In a world wired for non-stop engagement, retreat is radical. But it's not retreat in fear, it's retreat to prepare. Modern society tells us that to succeed, we must be constantly visible, constantly grinding, constantly on. But this leads to a life that is reactive, not reflective. It's not noble exhaustion, it's slow erosion. The Stoics understood something we've forgotten, that strategic withdrawal is not weakness, but wisdom. You step back not because you're afraid, but because you seek mastery. You remove yourself not to disappear, but to refine your presence. Just as a warrior sharpens his blade before battle, the Stoic sharpens his mind in solitude. This is not escape. It's a return to readiness. Seneca practiced withdrawal not to run from life, but to master it. He knew that stepping away from noise sharpened the ability to respond rather than react. Reactivity is the mark of a mind ruled by externals. Reflection is the hallmark of a trained mind. When Seneca retired to his simple villa, it was not in surrender to comfort, but as a disciplined reset. He practiced poverty though he was wealthy, silence though he was influential, solitude though he was surrounded. Because in these retreats, he remembered who he was. He prepared himself for chaos by courting calm. He strengthened his inner citadel, that inner fortress where no insult, no scandal, no misfortune could reach. When you intentionally step back, even briefly, be it a morning of silence, a walk without your phone, or an hour to think, you're training your mind to become less dependent on the external. You're reclaiming control over your attention. Each moment of silence becomes an act of rebellion against the chaos. It becomes a reminder that your mind is your own, that your time is not for sale, that your peace is not a commodity. These tiny retreats, these deliberate withdrawals, build your internal stamina. They teach you how to be with yourself, how to observe without judgment, how to listen without reacting. They train you to carry your center with you into the storm. This is the discipline. Create space before the world consumes you. Because if you don't design your solitude, chaos will design your distraction. You will find yourself spread thin, ruled by emails, hijacked by headlines, fragmented by 1,000 trivial urgencies. The Stoic sees this for what it is, a subtle form of slavery. The antidote is intentional retreat, a protected space where you can think, feel, choose, where you are not a cog in the machine, but a master of your fate. This is not about how much time you spend alone, but about how deliberately you guard your mind. It is a practice, a habit, a discipline, and in the end, it becomes your freedom. 3. Attention is the new currency of power. Your attention is your most sacred currency. In this digital battlefield, everyone wants a piece of it. The question is, who are you giving it to, and are they worthy? Every app, ad, and influencer is fighting for a slice of your awareness, not because they care about you, but because your attention is the new oil. It fuels platforms, sells products, drives narratives. And if you're not careful, you become the product. The Stoic refuses to be manipulated. The Stoic knows that attention is choice, and choice is freedom. When you give your attention to what is beneath you, you become less. When you direct it toward your principles, you become more. Every notification, every scroll, every comparison drains your ability to think clearly. But the Stoic filters input. They ask, does this serve my values? Does this make me better or weaker? Clarity is not found by consuming more, but by filtering more. Your mind is a garden, and what you plant in it grows. If you plant gossip, outrage, and distraction, do not be surprised when you reap anxiety, confusion, and fatigue. If you plant philosophy, silence, and inquiry, you will harvest clarity, focus, and resilience. The discipline of attention is a form of spiritual hygiene. It is about protecting the inner space where your best self resides, and that space is sacred. Protecting your attention isn't selfish, it's essential. Because what you focus on, consistently, you become. When you guard your mind, you grow your power. When you waste your focus on trivialities, you weaken your will. Every day is a battle for your consciousness. And the most dangerous enemies are not outside. They're subtle, familiar, addictive. The endless feed, the algorithm, the comparison, the outrage. They do not storm the gates. They wear you down, one scroll at a time. But the Stoic stands guard. The Stoic asks, is this worth my time, my energy, my soul? And if the answer is no, they turn away. That is strength. Imagine a man in a noisy coffee shop, the hum of conversation swirling around him, music blaring overhead, phones buzzing nearby. And yet, he is centered. He is focused. One notebook open before him, pen in hand. The world fades around him. He has taken his attention back. That is the image of power today, not louder, faster, flashier, but quieter, stiller, more deliberate. Attention, then, is no longer a passive thing. It is a weapon, a shield, a tool of transformation. Guard it, cultivate it, wield it. Because in a world starving for distraction, your focused mind is revolutionary. 4. Emotional sovereignty begins in silence. In solitude, emotions rise, unfiltered, raw, honest. And that's exactly why it's powerful. In the stillness of solitude, there's nowhere to hide. The distractions fade away, the noise of the world quiets down, and what's left is the unfiltered echo of your own inner life. Most people avoid being alone not because it's boring, but because it's brutally honest. In that silence, everything suppressed or ignored rises to the surface. Anger you thought you'd let go of, sadness you buried deep, insecurities you masked with humor or success, all of them emerge. This is not a flaw of solitude, but its greatest gift. It reveals what's truly within you. When you're surrounded by people, social expectations and interactions can shape or muffle your emotional truth. You say what's acceptable, do what's expected, and often feel what's allowed. But when you're alone, the mask falls. That raw exposure to your unedited emotional state may feel overwhelming, but it is also clarifying. You begin to notice patterns, lingering wounds, and automatic reactions that go unnoticed in the rush of daily life. And it's in this space that power lies, not power over others, but over yourself. You learn to sit with what arises without numbing or deflecting. This ability to face yourself fully and without flinching becomes the foundation of emotional sovereignty. When you're alone, you confront what you usually suppress. Fear, regret, doubt, they all show up. But instead of being consumed, the Stoic observes, learns, understands. Fear often hides beneath activity. Regret drowns beneath distraction. Doubt wears the mask of perfectionism or pride. Yet in solitude, there is no curtain to hide behind. These emotions rise, stark and undeniable. Most people run from them, turn to screens, conversations, substances, or goals that serve as noise. But if you embrace solitude as the Stoics did, you learn to look directly into these uncomfortable truths. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they each practiced this inward turning. They understood that emotional mastery begins not in reaction, but in reflection. The Stoic does not deny fear, he studies it. He feels doubt, then traces its roots. He sees regret and asks, what can I learn from this? It's not about suppressing emotion, but dissecting it with calm curiosity. By taking this reflective stance, you gain a kind of internal freedom. You are no longer enslaved by what you feel. You become the observer, detached yet present. Emotions become data, not dictators. This shift, this practice, is the essence of self-mastery. And it only begins when the external world quiets long enough for your internal world to speak. Emotional sovereignty doesn't come from suppressing feeling. It comes from understanding it. Solitude teaches you to sit with discomfort without letting it define you. The myth of strength is that it means never feeling pain. The truth is far more nuanced. Real emotional sovereignty doesn't require you to suppress your feelings or pretend they're not there. It asks that you understand them fully, so they no longer control you. Suppression leads to internal pressure, and pressure eventually leads to rupture. But understanding dissolves the charge. In solitude, You learn the language of your inner world. You begin to notice what triggers your sadness or anger, what thoughts spiral into anxiety, and what events resurface as shame. And instead of pushing these away, you let them be. You watch them rise, peak, and fall like waves on the ocean. You realize that discomfort is a visitor, not a permanent resident. You don't have to obey every feeling. You don't have to let them shape your identity. Solitude allows you to sit in this uncomfortable space and realize that pain is not the enemy, avoidance is. And the longer you sit, the more you see. Your feelings are signals, not definitions. You can feel fear and still act with courage. You can feel grief and still love. You can feel anger and still choose peace. This is the sovereignty that solitude grants, the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by what you feel. You become less reactive, more responsive. You stop chasing control and instead embody it, because when no one's around and you still choose peace, that's mastery. The world teaches reactivity. Social media, news cycles, daily stresses, they all demand immediate reaction. But reactivity is a sign of internal chaos. Emotional sovereignty, however, brings with it a profound shift from reacting to responding. This isn't just semantics. It's a fundamental transformation of how you move through life. In solitude, you rehearse this shift. When no one's watching, there is no one to impress, no one to perform for. Your choices become honest. You start choosing peace not because it's performative, but because it's natural. You realize that real control isn't about dominating others or even yourself. It's about maintaining inner harmony regardless of external conditions. You embody calm. You embody clarity. You stop chasing control as something outside yourself and recognize that it's already within you. Mastery is this: choosing your emotional state rather than being hijacked by it. And the most powerful proof of that mastery isn't in grand displays. It's in the quiet moment where you feel chaos rising and you breathe, choose stillness, and respond with grace. That's sovereignty. That's the power solitude cultivates. 5. Building unshakable resilience from within. True strength isn't built in public, it's built in silence. It's forged in the hours where no one is watching, where you confront your flaws without filters. Strength is often mistaken for what is seen: muscles, achievements, confidence. But the most powerful form of strength is internal, invisible, forged in the unseen hours. When no one is looking, when there's no applause or validation, that's when true resilience is born. It's easy to appear strong in public. It's much harder to be strong when you're alone with your own self-doubt. Solitude strips you of external affirmation, forcing you to rely solely on your inner resources. That's where you begin to notice the cracks: your procrastination, your excuses, your insecurities. You see your flaws not through a distorted social lens, but through the sharp clarity of honesty. And it's in that confrontation, with no performance, no mask, that you can finally begin the real work. The work of rebuilding, of rewiring, of learning to sit with discomfort and not flinch. Every moment you choose discipline over indulgence, reflection over reaction, truth over ego, you're forging resilience. These choices, repeated in the silence of solitude, form the internal architecture of an unshakable person. No one may see it, no one may applaud it, but when storms come, and they always do, you'll stand strong, not because you avoided hardship, but because you trained for it in the dark. The Stoics knew this. They didn't wait for the world to challenge them. They trained in solitude. They rehearsed hardship in the quiet so they could respond with strength in the storm. The Stoics didn't believe in waiting for life to test them. They believed in preparation, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Marcus Aurelius, though emperor, journaled in solitude about death, failure, and his own ego. Epictetus, once a slave, trained his mind to remain steady, despite his painful circumstances. Seneca wrote letters warning against the seduction of comfort, urging practice in simplicity and hardship. Why? Because they knew life is unpredictable. You can't control when hardship strikes, but you can control how prepared you are for it. In solitude, the Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort. They fasted, slept on the ground, visualized loss, not out of pessimism, but as a way to strengthen the mind against dependence. This wasn't martyrdom, it was mastery. By confronting difficulty voluntarily, they developed a kind of resilience that could not be shaken by surprise. Modern life, with its comfort and distraction, dulls this instinct. But when you embrace solitude with the intention to train your mind, you reignite this ancient discipline. You stop reacting to life as a victim and start meeting it as a warrior. The silence becomes your gym. The inner challenges become your resistance. And over time, your capacity grows, not just to endure suffering, but to transform through it. When you know yourself deeply, you cannot be easily broken. You anticipate your emotions, your triggers, your defaults, and you rewrite them through discipline. Self-knowledge is the cornerstone of resilience. Without it, you move through life reacting blindly, pushed and pulled by emotions you don't understand. But when you've taken the time, through solitude, reflection, and disciplined awareness, to truly know yourself, you become grounded. You begin to see your emotional patterns before they hijack you. You recognize your triggers and understand where they come from. You spot your defaults, how you run from pain, how you grasp for validation, how you avoid responsibility. And this awareness is power, because what is seen can be changed. The journey of resilience is not about becoming emotionless or immune to difficulty. It's about becoming adaptive. You anticipate what will knock you off balance, and you prepare. You rewrite your habits with intention. You train yourself to respond instead of react, to reflect instead of erupt. Discipline isn't about control for its own sake. It's about freedom. The freedom to choose how you show up in the world, no matter what's happening around you. This kind of inner solidity doesn't come from reading or talking. It comes from doing the work consistently, often in solitude. It's in the quiet, repetitive practice of inner mastery that you become someone who cannot be easily broken. Solitude is your training ground, and when the chaos comes, and it always will, you'll walk through it steady, because you prepared. In the quiet, the world will test you. That's a given. Relationships will strain, careers will shift, health will falter, and unexpected losses will strike. Chaos is not optional, but how you meet it is. Solitude offers a sacred space to rehearse your response. It's the dojo where your spirit trains. In that space, you simulate discomfort. You practice stillness. You sit with doubt and build resolve. You breathe through frustration and grow patience. This preparation is invisible, but its effects are undeniable. When the real storm comes, you don't flinch, you don't panic, because you've already been there in your mind, in your emotions, in your soul. You've practiced calm when nothing was wrong, so it becomes your default when everything goes wrong. Resilience isn't a switch you flip, it's a muscle you build. And solitude is your gym. No crowds, no praise, just you, your thoughts, and the choice to keep showing up. In the end, the storms won't stop coming, but they will stop shaking you. Because you've prepared, not once, not perfectly, but relentlessly, in the quiet, in the dark, in the place where true strength is forged. Return with power, live with intention. You don't stay in solitude forever. You go there to sharpen, to align, to become. When you return from the silence, you return with direction, with purpose, with the inner strength to face a world that tries to pull you in 1,000 directions and say, "No, I know who I am." This is the Stoic path. Not retreat, but readiness. Not silence for escape, but silence for elevation. If this message resonated with you, don't just listen, live it. Subscribe for more Stoic insights that empower you to lead yourself. And remember, the quieter you become, the more you hear the voice that matters most, your own.